Hello there makers, it is Jo from Minerva. Today we're going to do a technique sew along for sewing a fly. Sometimes if you're new to sewing or you've been gaining a little confidence, you see a pattern and you quite like it and then you realise it's got a zip fly or a button fly, and that's sometimes a little bit off-putting. Today I'm going to show you how to do a zip fly or a button fly. So there's sort of two parts to this video today. So hopefully it will give you confidence in choosing a pattern that has a fly. Patterns that have a fly on also tend to have a waistband on as well, so you might need to check out some of your skills for adding waistbands. The key to making a zip fly is accuracy, and really when I say accuracy I mean to the sort of millimetre, because otherwise you're not catching a zip, you're not catching the edge of a fabric, you're not creating that curved shape on the outside near the bottom of your zip. So you'll be needing a marking tool and a way to make sure that you can be really accurate. Before you add a fly, you need to make sure that you've got your crotch length right, because once you've put all of that in, you can't change it easily. So if you do change your crotch rise, you will have changed other parts of the pattern. So all of your zip pieces will need to be changed, and all of your button fly pieces will need to change. And also you might need to get a different length zip. So if you're going to take a centimetre out of the crotch rise, then you need to change to a different zip length. That's quite technical, but if you are going to start messing around with sizes, remember you're going to affect the length of the zip. First up, we're going to look at a zip fly, because that's probably the most popular style that you will see in patterns on our website. So I'm going to show you how to put a zip fly in just on a sample fabric. A zip fly might be cut out from the material in this sort of shape and folded under and pressed, or you might have a separate fly that you attach and finish on the edges, and then that is pressed under. So some are separate and some are a grown on fly. Take your fly piece, it's a single layer, and add interfacing and then finish the edges. Now put the fly right sides together, matching up the top of your skirt or trousers and pinning the straight edge. You're going to sew at 14mm here, and then trim out the interfaced seam so that the fly will fold over easily to the wrong side. Next you're going to understitch, but it depends. Some are understitched so it flips under easily like this, or some have an edge stitch on the top if you've got top stitching detail. So then you would see the edge stitching. From the wrong side you'll see the understitching, and it's holding all of the seam allowances towards the fly. It folds over really well. Next, if it's a skirt, you're going to sew your centre seam. If it's trousers, you're going to sew the crotch seam. So from a point, a fly point marked on your pattern, pin down the rest of the seam. You're going to join your seam line coming up to the bottom of your fly. Here it is close up. So the last bit of my seam, I'm going to really gently and carefully join it onto the seam line, forwards and back. This is now one seam. Next, take your fly guard, and this stops the zip touching your skin. You're going to fold the fly guard in half, right sides together, press, and sew 1.5 along the bottom of the guard. You're going to trim that edge, especially at the corner, so that you can turn it out. Take off the corner, flip it to the right side, and then I can use a point turner to get a sharp corner. Then I can finish the edge of the fly guard. So I've got a folded edge and a finished edge. Now with the opening at the top, the finishing edge at the side, you're going to place your zip onto the fly guard. Just make sure you've got it on the right side of the fabric, the one that you need it on, and you're going to pin it so that the zipper teeth are 1.5 centimeters from the edge and sew down. The zip is now attached. You might need an adjusting foot or a zipper foot so that you can make that seam. It's down the center of that zip. Next, you're going to apply the zip guard, keep the other half of the skirt or trousers out of the way, and put your guard and zip right sides together. I like to match up the bottom first rather than the top, because I can always adjust or trim the top, but I want that bottom to be in just the right place so that the zip folds out. I'm going to sew along there at 1.5, and towards the end I'm just going to lift the foot up and lift the needle up and remove the zip out of the way. So now I've got the zip guard and the zip and skirt in between the zip. Some patterns will ask you to edge stitch now, so that it keeps the zipper teeth and the fabric out of each other's way. From the right side, you'll now have the guard covering your skin and the fly smoothly on top. You can check this now. If there's any changes, make those now before you carry on. Now you're going to attach the other side of the zip to the fly. So there's the zip. Just going to pin that to the fly. But a warning, you don't want it to be stuck to the guard, so pin the guard out of the way. Continue to pin the other side of the zip to the fly. I like to sew this with a long stitch on my sewing machine so that if it's not quite in the right place, I can take it out easily. Let's have a look. Okay, that's in the right place. It's catching the zipper tape and the zip fly is inserted. I've got my fly guard sort of flapping around at the back. Just going to pin the fly so that it doesn't move around. I should have the guard and the zip on the back and the fly and the zip on the front with the edge stitching. Next, I'm going to keep the zipper guard out of the way again, and we're going to put the top stitching on the fly. I'm just hand drawing it on because it's a sample, but you might be following a curved line from your pattern. So it's just the fly and the skirt, not the guard, and you're going to sew along that curve. I've got 2 rows of top stitching and I've added some bar tacking. Some at the bottom to strengthen where the zip lands, and some at the top so that it holds the guard in place. So here holds the guard flat. I've been making the Dawn jeans. I chose a button fly, so I'm going to show you the process I followed when I put that fly in those jeans. Obviously it might not be the same in every pattern, but if you can see the process, you can see whether you think you could handle that type of skill or not. Take your fly, it's got the button holes marked on it, and you're going to interface that piece. Then you've got your other fly pieces. There is your button fly, your buttonholes marked. It's got a folded edge and buttonholes. Next is the fly extension, which is just like the fly guard we looked at. So it's sewn across the end with a seam and finished along the edge. And lastly, there's a fly, which is a single layer with a curved finished edge, and the notches are all marked. You need to make sure you've made your buttonholes before you construct your trousers, because you can't get at that piece afterwards. So test your buttonholes. On the right side of the fabric, take the fly extension or fly guard, right sides together, match up the notches and pin in place. Sew this at 6mm. Snip 6mm just below the extension so that the crotch and the fly mark work independently of each other, and then you can fold the extension and press and sew an edge stitch. On the left side, you're going to put the single fly piece. So right sides together, again, match up the notches, pin in place, but this time sew at 15mm along this seam and snip again at 15mm at the bottom. Roll the fly to the wrong side so that none of the fly is showing. You can just pin this out of the way. Top stitch and turn over so that you've got your fly facing up. Put your button fly right side onto the fly. Line up the folded edges and check that the curve at the bottom of the fly is all matched up. Next, sew a line along the edge of all of the fly layers. Now in the pattern it suggests to change the thread on your machine and do a contrasting machine tack along there, but I'd been swapping between top stitching threads and sewing threads, so I didn't want to change the colour again, so I'm just putting a line of tacking in there, making sure I'm doing a really clean tack around the curve to show the shape of the bottom of the fly. Next, I can take the pins out and flip it over. Here's the stitching line that I will follow for top stitching. This is where you finish the crotch seam or your centre front of skirt, and just mind where that snip is. You can finish any top stitching detail. Now we're going to put those bar tacks on like we did last time, one at the bottom of the zip. Make sure everything's lined up. And then you're going to put another bar tack a little bit further up the zip, and that one and the one at the bottom will make your fly strong. The one at the top is that sort of stress point where when you put the jeans on you don't want to split the bottom seam, so you can make the bar tacks. If it's a bit thick at the bottom, if you're using denim or thicker fabrics, you can just use a hammer to soften the fabric. It makes it a bit softer and it opens up the weave of the fabric. But you must do this from the wrong side of the fabric so you don't make any marks. It's always a good idea to practice your bar tacks on a piece of scrap, so just make sure you're getting the right stitch width. There's the tack, and there's another bar tack at the bottom. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that's just given you a little overview of the two different fly techniques. It might help you to choose a pattern that has a fly that you thought, oh, I've never really wanted to tackle that. You can just see the sort of basic process in which a fly is constructed. Do head over to Minerva and take a look at our patterns and of course our fabrics, and we would love to see you over on our website, so do make yourself a free account and upload your makes for us to see. Thank you very much for watching. See you again soon.